Hi folks, it's Andy Krieger, your garden helper, and we find ourselves today the very first part of March, okay? It is 70 degrees out today. Tomorrow it may be 30, but today we're going to enjoy it. What we're going to do is talk a little bit about one of the very first questions people ask, which is, what can I plant first? Talk a little bit about some plant material and get you growing. The first rule of thumb is the 8-week rule, okay? There are a series of crops that you can go ahead and seed indoors 8 weeks prior to the last frost date in your area. Cole crops are great examples. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, even specialty tomatoes and peppers all start indoors 8 weeks prior to your last frost date. Another thing that people forget about are your patio produce pots. 8 weeks prior, I will go ahead and direct seed carrots, spinach, beets, radishes. As they grow on, we'll thin them out, but this product is never intended for the garden. It's intended for the deck, your deck and patio, which you can eat from all season long then. So don't forget about your patio produce pots 8 weeks prior also.
Avalon, my hometown, always on my mind.
Okay, rule number 2, we can actually start to move outdoors. This is the 6-week rule. 6 weeks prior to your last frost date, you can go ahead and put your onion sets outdoors in your garden, or you can plant your onion sets right into a patio produce pot. Plant peas, plant spinach right outdoors 6 weeks prior. An old rule of thumb that we do with spinach, if there happens to be a little bit of snow on the ground, direct seed your spinach right on top of that snow, right in lines just like you would normally, but put it on top of that snow. And as that snow melts, it's going to go right into your soil, bury it down a little bit, and it's the perfect depth. The cool thing about planting spinach early and turnips and radishes early is if you get them planted at the right time, you will actually start to harvest them that very first part of May. Another piece of advice is when you're direct seeding your spinach over the snow and working on your pea plantings and your onion sets, putting those in, start looking for your perennials that are starting to creep out a little bit. Start looking for those bulbs that are just starting to crack through. When you see those just starting to come through the ground, it's time you can go ahead and start putting your perennials in. Make sure that when you buy these from the garden centers, they have good established roots in them, but right now is the time to put those into the ground once that temperature starts to warm up. And you can tell that by seeing what your other perennial plantings are currently doing. Okay, rule number 3. 5 weeks prior to your last frost date, you can take your seedlings that you started 8 weeks ago and plant them outdoors. 3 weeks worth of growth, you're going to have some nice little seedlings. Your cabbage, your cauliflower, they're ready to go now. Plant directly outdoors. The frost won't hurt your cabbage and cauliflower. Remember, plant that 5 weeks before the last frost date. Moving to rule number 4. 4 weeks before the last frost date, you can direct seed your beets and you can plant your potatoes outdoors. That soil temperatures come up enough that you can go ahead and direct seed and plant those right into the garden 4 weeks before the last frost date. Now 3 weeks prior to your last predicted frost date, it's time to plant the seedlings of broccoli and Brussels sprouts that you planted 8 weeks before inside. So you take your 8-week seedlings of broccoli and Brussels sprouts and plant them into the garden 3 weeks prior to that last frost date. It's also time to direct seed your lettuce. You can continue on with your spinach, but your lettuce and a lot of your greens can go ahead and be direct seeded then also. The very last rule we have is 2 weeks before the last predicted frost date. time to direct seed your Swiss chard and carrots directly into the garden. You don't do these with plants, you direct seed right out into the garden, carrots and Swiss chard. Well, I hope I've been able to answer some of those early season seeding and planting questions for you. So until next time, it's Andy Krieger, your garden helper, reminding you, when you grow it, you know it.